It's often been said that the scariest kind of criminal is one without a motive, and that can certainly be said for the subject of today's video. A man who went on a brutal killing spree ending with one of the most famous fashion designers in the entire world. Welcome to Seeking Answers, and today this episode is brought to you by a channel member. Join us today and request a case. And today we are covering the gruesome tale of Andrew Cunanan. Andrew Cunanan was born on August 31st, 1969 in National City, California, to Filipino-American father Modesto Cunanan and Italian-American mother Mary Scalacci. After a difficult pregnancy, Mary began to suffer severe postpartum depression, spending 3 months after the birth in hospital, only adding on to the frequent arguments with her husband. Modesto was serving as a chief petty officer in the United States Navy at the time of his son's birth, before beginning work as a stockbroker. Andrew grew to attend Bonita Vista Middle School, and by 1981 he enrolled in the Bishop School in San Diego, California. He was described as being an incredibly bright child with an IQ of 147 and being extremely talkative, and it was here where he met his lifelong best friend, Elizabeth Coate. However, this was a private school where a lot of his classmates had come from families far wealthier, leading to resentment from himself and bullying from others. He also soon gained a reputation of being a prolific liar, often telling stories about his family and personal life in an attempt to fit in with others. His father was a strong disciplinarian, but unlike most other early signs of traumatic childhoods attributing to later violent behaviours, he wasn't abusive. In fact, Andrew was the only child out of the 4 to attend the wealthy private school, leading to his brother Christopher claiming that Andrew was actually his father's favourite and his pride and joy. He was given his own personal bath, and he was even provided with the master bedroom instead of his parents. Cunanan would study encyclopedias and even memorize them to retain as much general knowledge as possible, and he would soon learn to speak 7 different languages. He gained a habit of claiming to have been friends with major celebrities, and he would also change his appearance to whichever he felt was the most attractive at the time. During high school, Andrew realized that he was gay and began talking with much older and wealthier men. His classmates voted Andrew as the most likely to be remembered, with some reporting that he always claimed that he would become famous one day, but not because of his achievements, but more because of his personality. Allegedly, his parents doted upon him and even told him that he was far more special and deserving than the rest of his classmates, reassuring him that he would become rich and famous someday. Sadly, their marriage began to struggle as his mother Mary started to suffer from chronic depression due to the constant arguing with her husband. This led to Andrew continuing to make up outlandish claims at school about his family, completely masking what was actually happening behind closed doors, even claiming that his father was an Israeli millionaire or a Fifth Avenue aristocrat. He sometimes told people that he came from a Jewish family or that his father owned a home on the Riviera. He even claimed to have had an ex-wife and a young daughter, even going as far as providing fake photographs to supposedly prove this. In 1987, Andrew graduated from high school and enrolled at the University of California in San Diego, where he majored in American history. Sadly, the following year, Andrew's father was facing legal issues for embezzlement, and to evade his arrest, he abandoned the family, took all of their money, and fled back to the Philippines. At some point, Andrew did actually go and live with him for a short stint, before choosing to return, claiming that his father was living in squalor, unhappy with his living conditions. However, Modesto and Mary never officially divorced, and despite living separate lives, they remained married. Cunanan's mother would later claim, quote, "Andrew was my marriage counsellor. We would take walks around the block together, and he would explain things to me. He was beautiful, intelligent, handsome, bright, gifted. I just want to remember the good things." End quote. At first, her husband did actually send her his Navy pension money to live off of, but this soon stopped, resorting to Mary living off of food stamps. She relocated to Illinois near her other son Christopher, who would help her financially wherever he could, as she lived in a small apartment. It was that same year when Andrew began visiting local gay clubs and restaurants, while his deeply religious Catholic mother finally discovered his sexuality, which most of the family were aware of but had never openly acknowledged. This now caused a massive argument, leading to Andrew throwing his mother against a wall, dislocating her shoulder. His father would later, however, deny his son's own homosexuality, claiming, quote, "My son is not like that. He is innocent. He is not a homosexual. He had a Catholic upbringing and was an altar boy. I don't believe he did what the American police say he did." End quote. It was later concluded that Andrew Cunanan possibly suffered from antisocial personality disorder, which would explain his complete lack of remorse or empathy for others. In 1989, Andrew dropped out of university before relocating to the Castro district of San Francisco, which was the center of gay culture at the time. He moved into an apartment with his best friend Elizabeth and her boyfriend Phil Merrill. In San Francisco, Cunanan continued to befriend wealthy older men and even began creating violent pornography with them. He would reportedly socialize around the Californian neighborhood, as well as in Scottsdale, Arizona, supposedly living off of the largesse of one wealthy patron or another. He also began dealing drugs such as opioids, cocaine, and marijuana under various different aliases. During his habit of claiming to have met and befriended several celebrities, Andrew also had a bizarre obsession with fashion designer Gianni Versace, claiming that they even had a strong personal friendship. While Versace's own family denied them having ever met, several eyewitness accounts confirmed that they did, in around October 1990 in a San Francisco nightclub. Versace was in town at the time to be recognized for the costumes that he had designed for the opera production of Capriccio. Supposedly, Versace recognized Cunanan from a party at his house on Lake Como. Though it remains unclear if he had actually ever been to this party, it was reported that Andrew seemed to enjoy this recognition and decided to use it to his advantage to discuss among friends and family. While there's no definitive evidence that the two remained in touch after this encounter, investigators did later conclude that it was more than likely possible that they did interact again over the years, as they were both involved in the sex-for-hire circle within the Miami and San Francisco areas. But the true extent remains a mystery. It's been theorized from Cunanan's friends that he resented Versace's wealth and success and had become obsessed with him, often dropping his name into conversations randomly after they had met, as he was most likely the most famous person he had ever come across. It was in December 1995 when Andrew Cunanan met 31-year-old architect from Minneapolis, David Madsen, and the two began a long-distance relationship, Andrew describing him as the love of his life. However, by spring the following year, David called things off between them, telling friends that he sensed something shady about the guy. This was a huge blow to Cunanan, who was completely devoted to Madsen. Andrew's former roommate Eric Greenman claimed, quote, "Andrew loved David Madsen very, very much, but after the breakup, David didn't want anything to do with him. I mean, David was Andrew's life. He said many, many times that he would give up everything to move out to Minneapolis for David." End quote. By September, Andrew had been seeing another older man named Norman Blatchford, who was financially supporting him, providing him with a fancy car to drive, vacations to New York City and France, and even giving him $2,000 per month. Andrew had provided him with a fake name of Andrew De Silva. But things started to suffer when Blatchford discovered that Andrew had maxed out all of his credit cards and found out his true identity before promptly ending the relationship. Many have contributed this being a part of the continuing downfall in Cunanan's mental state, reiterated by criminal profiler Candice DeLong, who claimed, quote, Andrew's self-worth was tied to the finer things in life, what people could do for him. Being accepted in high society and by wealthy people was what he expected. If he didn't get them, he was lost, end quote. Things would only get worse when Madsen moved on and gained a new boyfriend. Andrew confided in several friends that he was suffering severe depression and was in extreme debt. At one point, he set fire to a paper plate at a dinner table with some napkins before casually walking away. The owner of a place where Andrew would frequently hang out claimed, quote, he had gotten rid of his car. He was living in a dumpy apartment. All the pretenses were gone. He couldn't be the top dog anymore. He couldn't be the center of attention, end quote. Columnist Nicole Ramirez Murray backed up this claim. Quote, when Blatchford dumped him, Cunanan lost his key to his exclusive world. After the millionaire cut him off, he had nothing left. The man who was always the big spending life of the party was tapped out, end quote. Andrew's close friend and 28-year-old former naval officer Jeff Trail would later claim that during this time, Cunanan would resume selling and taking drugs himself. By April 1997, he was described as taking painkillers and alcohol like there was no tomorrow. Cunanan and Trail soon ended up having an argument, leading to Andrew leaving Minneapolis and cutting ties with him. Trail expected him to return home to San Francisco, but in reality, he was back in San Diego, and he told friends that he needed to return to Minneapolis to take care of some business matters with Trail. Though some speculated a potential relationship between the two, nothing is confirmed to have actually happened. Two of Trail's friends even warned him to get out of the relationship and away from Cunanan. Trail would actually defend Andrew, however, and his sister Candice Parrott would later tell People magazine, quote, people would ask Jeff why he put up with Andrew. His friends told me Jeff would say, it's kind of like having a black sheep in your family. You just put up with him and you just love him, end quote. It was reported that Cunanan would do his best to try to imitate Jeff Trail, copying his haircut, facial hair, and even sometimes his exact clothing. Trail reportedly told his roommate Michael Williams that he had a huge falling out with Andrew and, quote, I made a lot of enemies this weekend. I've got to get out of here. They're going to kill me, end quote. He maintained that he didn't want Andrew Cunanan to come and see him. But that wasn't going to stop him. On April the 24th, 1997, Andrew and 4 friends attended a going-away party at Hillcrest's California Cuisine, but strangely, Cunanan didn't cover the tab as he normally would. It would later be discovered that he had reached the credit limit on both of his own credit cards, and had to ask for an extension just to afford a plane ticket to return to Minneapolis. Andrew arrived there on the 25th and stayed with his ex-boyfriend David Madsen in his apartment. They ate dinner together that evening at Nye's restaurant and then visited the Gay 90s nightclub. The next day, he headed to Jeff Trail's apartment where they had a huge argument, leaving to Cunanan stealing his gun and leaving the building. Trail then left town with his boyfriend John Hackett, but told him that he needed to have a pretty important conversation with Andrew. At this point, they returned to the apartment, but Andrew nor his belongings were anywhere to be seen. Jeff then received a call from the man himself, who asked him to come to Madsen's apartment to retrieve the gun. Once arriving at around 9:45 p.m, Cunanan beat him to death with a hammer in front of his ex-boyfriend. The duo proceeded to stay in the exact same apartment for 2 days after the killing. A neighbour spotted both men in the apartment building lift on April the 28th, and another saw them casually walking Madsen's dog on the 29th. It was that same day when a colleague of Madsen was becoming concerned with his absence from work and decided to visit his apartment to check up on him. Upon entering, they discovered the dead body of Jeff Trail, rolled up in a rug and placed behind the sofa, though some reports claim that it was inside a closet. Due to the neighbours' sightings, Madsen was now considered a suspect, despite his family insisting that he was being held captive by the other man. On May the 2nd, both men were spotted north of Minneapolis driving Madsen's Jeep and eating lunch together in a bar. But at some point after this, Andrew Cunanan murdered his only companion. On May the 3rd, Madsen's dead body was discovered on the east shore of the Rush Lake near Rush City, Minnesota, with gunshot wounds to the head and back from the same pistol that he had taken from Jeff Trail's apartment. After news broke of Andrew Cunanan's actions and the manhunt began, many of his friends and acquaintances fled the city to avoid running into him and possibly becoming his next victim. His best friend Elizabeth Coate urged him to hand himself in, releasing a plea, quote, "The Andrew Cunanan I know is not a violent person. Andrew, wherever you are, please stop what you are doing. You still have a chance to show the entire world the side of you that I and your godchildren know. The time has come for this to end peacefully. Dee Dee loves you, Shmoo. I bring with me a special message from our papoose. Grimmy says she loves her Uncle Monkey and hopes that you'll remember that always. Your birthday will soon be here, and the day after, someone else who loves you will be 5 years old. Please let those be days of relief." End quote. While the motive for these brutal crimes may be evident within their particular altercations, Andrew Cunanan's actions and reasons going forward remain a mystery. That same day, he drove to Chicago, where he attacked 72-year-old real estate developer Lee Albert Meiglin, who was cleaning his garage. He proceeded to bound his hands and feet and wrapped his entire head with duct tape, only leaving his nostrils with breathing space. He then tortured and stabbed him more than 20 times with a screwdriver, breaking his ribs before finally slitting his throat with a hacksaw. After murdering the 72-year-old man, Andrew Cunanan casually relaxed inside his home, fixing himself a ham sandwich and even shaving, before finally stealing his car and leaving the property. While Meiglin's own family were convinced that this was a random killing, former FBI agent Greg McCrary refused to believe that this much torture and abuse would have been done without a viable motive. The body was soon discovered, and investigators noticed that his car was missing, with Madsen's Jeep left outside the house. Luckily, Meiglin's Lexus had a car phone, which was activated on May the 4th in Union County, Pennsylvania, leading to the authorities closely monitoring the phone's activity going forward. It was activated once again on May the 8th in Philadelphia, and again the following day in Carneys Point Township, New Jersey. And it was that same day when Cunanan murdered 45-year-old cemetery caretaker William Richard Reese. Once Reese didn't return home for dinner, his wife visited the cemetery to check on him, where she found his office door ajar with the radio still playing. She soon informed the police, who found his dead body with a gunshot wound in the head by the exact same pistol. Some have claimed that this killing was random, while the authorities believe that it was just for Andrew to steal his pickup truck. It was at this point that Andrew Cunanan had become one of the United States' most wanted fugitives. But despite the national manhunt, on May the 12th, he began staying at the Normandy Plaza Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida, paying $29 per night in cash. The owner would later admit that Andrew would frequently attempt to change his own appearance, including wearing an obvious wig. The police would later receive negative press for not having warned the Miami gay community about Andrew in advance, believing that the following events could have been prevented. The huge manhunt focused on finding the stolen pickup truck, but Cunanan had no qualms hiding in plain sight. On July the 7th, he used his real name to pawn a stolen item, being fully aware that the police were monitoring pawn shop records. But by the 14th, he had finally run out of money and checked out of his hotel without paying for the final night of his stay. It was on July the 15th, 1997. At around 8:45 a.m. when 50-year-old Gianni Versace returned home to his mansion in Miami Beach after visiting a news cafe to pick up some magazines. Normally he would send his assistant to run such an errand, but on this particular day, unfortunately, he decided to do it himself. As he climbed the steps of his home, Andrew Cunanan appeared and shot him once in the back of the head and again in the left cheek with the same pistol that he had stolen. Versace's former UK senior stylist Dean Aslett, who was there on vacation, was a witness to the killing and quickly gave chase but was unable to catch him as he fled into a nearby parking garage. Despite their best efforts, Versace was pronounced dead at Jackson Memorial Hospital at 9:21 a.m. Upon investigation, the police found the stolen pickup truck, which contained some of Andrew's clothes and newspaper clippings detailing reports of the earlier murders. After killing one of the most famous fashion designers in the entire world, Andrew Cunanan remained at large for 18 more days. On July the 23rd, 1997, a Miami Beach caretaker reported to the police hearing a gunshot, and upon investigation, the dead body of 27-year-old Andrew Cunanan was found inside a luxury houseboat, having shot himself with the exact same pistol he had used to murder 5 other people over the course of 3 months. Elizabeth Coate was convinced that the suicide took place with no note left behind due to Andrew's incredible guilt and remorse. Quote, "He would have been so overwhelmed with shame for his actions that I think that from then on he would have become a total self-loathing, self-hating existence of desperation." End quote. Andrew's body was cremated, and his remains are interred in a mausoleum at Holy Cross Cemetery in San Diego, California, while many celebrities attended the tragic funeral of Gianni Versace. However, Andrew's parents both refused to accept the truth. Mary initially denied him murdering Versace and claimed that it was a setup by the mafia, even growing a memorial garden in Andrew's honor, and she even supposedly had a shrine of him in her living room, while his father also believed that his son was innocent. Quote, "The American people are being misled. They swallowed everything hook, line and sinker because it came from the FBI." End quote. No suicide note was left behind, and upon searching his home, they only managed to find some hydrocortisone cream and a collection of books by C.S. Lewis, leading to Andrew's motive for such a brutal killing spree remaining a mystery. Initially, it was believed that he was frustrated and angry at being HIV positive, but upon the post-mortem, it was concluded that he didn't actually have the disease. However, several sources confirmed that Andrew did confide in several people that he believed he did. Versace had a long-time boyfriend, Antonio D'Amico, and Cunanan's own counsellor Mike Dudley supported this theory. Quote, "Mr. Cunanan expressed fear that he might be infected with the virus that causes AIDS and vowed revenge on whoever might have transmitted it to him." End quote. Andrew Cunanan's mother Mary passed away on April the 15th, 2012 at the age of 73, forever maintaining her son's innocence. His father, on the other hand, allegedly remarried to a Filipino woman, and he supposedly joined a survivalist cult, but his status and whereabouts to this day remain a mystery. While Andrew Cunanan had a huge obsession with Versace, police officers maintained that they couldn't find any reason for the murder or any of the others taking place, leading to the world looking over this case and the bloodbath he left behind and having no choice but to continue seeking answers.